Hello, hello, ATL movie fans, Philly movie fans, New Orleans movie fans across the universe, the galaxy, the United States, the globe, whatever you want to call it, especially Marvel fans. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the For My ATL Movies 1 presentation of the Iron Man 1 and 2 rewatch. Jordan, we're out here killing it, man. We are moving along. We have finally arrived at 2008 and not 2000 and late. That was a little corny. But we have finally arrived at Iron Man 1, the movie that started it all. Super excited. Jordan, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I can't complain. Wouldn't matter if I did. Super excited about getting into this movie, man. This is the movie that started the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. What a great movie. What a great actor. And it's kind of fitting that it was RDJ because it kind of saved Marvel and it was a Phoenix moment. In other words, Marvel was kind of rising from the ashes. We know the trouble they went through in the 90s, which is why they had to sell off certain characters to certain movie studios just to keep going. And so this is kind of a representation of a rising of the ashes from Marvel, but not only a rising of the ashes from Marvel, but a rising of the ashes for RDJ's career, right? So super excited to get into it, man. And hey, without further ado, let's just do that. Uh, Iron Man was directed by John Favreau, produced by Kevin Feige and Avi Arad. The release date was May 2nd, 2008. Wow. So many moons ago. That was what,
Mhm.
18 years ago, I think? 17 years ago, something like that.
Yep.
Uh, Budget was 140 million. Box office did 585 million. Excuse me. $500 million. Cha-ching, no small change. Cast was Robert Downey Jr., Gwyneth Paltrow, Jeff Bridges, and Terrence Howard as Rhodey. And we'll get into why Terrence Howard only made one appearance in the MCU to this point. But very good movie. Again, kicked off the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Real quick plot summary: Tony Stark, a billionaire weapons manufacturer, is captured overseas with the help of Jensen. He builds the first Iron Man suit to escape his captors. Returning home transformed, Tony shuts down the weapons production, sorry about that, confronts Obadiah Stane, and reveals himself as Iron Man. But let's get into what this movie was really about. At its core, Iron Man is about accountability. It's a story of a man confronting the damage his privilege and intelligence caused when left unchecked. Unlike many origin stories, the film focuses less on how we got powers and more on why he must change. Give me your first impressions when you first saw this movie way back in 2008, Jordan. I know you were just a
Mhm.
young whippersnapper, but give me your first impressions when you first saw this.
So I remember when the teaser trailers were first coming out with this movie, and most of the trailers in general had the um it had basically the beginning of the movie when Tony's in the military vehicles driving in the Middle East, and it was very similar to another movie that was coming out around that time. I'm
Yep.
gonna have to figure out what that movie was, but there was two movies that they both start off the same way, and I remember I would be like, "Oh, is this the Iron Man trailer? No, it's this other movie. Is this other movie's trailer? No, it's Iron Man's trailer." But when I first saw this movie, I was in school. I had at that point I had no intentions of seeing this movie. Like I was big in. I mean, Tobey Maguire was still Spider-Man to this point. Um, there was the Hulk movie that was going to be coming out later this year, and we had the X-Men movies with Wolverine. Wolverine was like a big deal then. So when I saw Iron Man, who at this point in like the comics, nobody really cared about Iron Man. He was a sea-level superhero.
Hmm.
He's not that big of a deal. So when they said they were doing an Iron Man movie, I was like, oh, okay, all right. I mean, I guess. Um, it was never on my radar at all. So my mom decided to pull me out of school and not tell me what was going on or where we were going. I thought someone died, but I did.
Oh
And then
wow.
I, 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 I thought a worst case scenario. I don't know. I got pulled out of school quite a bit to just go see movies or go do stuff. So, um, I was like, I don't know. I thought she wasn't telling me anything. So, we didn't have a car at the time, so we walked to the movie theater, which was like a it was like an hour walk from school, and we get to the theater, and I was like, "Oh, we're seeing a movie." I didn't know what movie we were even seeing. At no point did it click in my head we were going to go see Iron Man, but that turned out to be a foundational piece of my childhood because I didn't miss a single Marvel movie after this except for Guardians of the Galaxy because I didn't know Guardians of the Galaxy was Marvel when it first came out. So, but yeah, this was like pre-social media for like, I mean, Facebook was just starting. Facebook was there. It was and YouTube were like a year, 2 years old at this point. MySpace was huge. So, like, in fact, they have a MySpace reference in the beginning of the movie, when he's like, "Don't post this on MySpace,"
I
and
know,
he's like,
right?
"Yeah, peace,
Oh,
peace, I love peace."
oh wow.
Like, it's yeah. So,
What do you say?
I
I'll go out of
remember,
business with peace.
yeah, I go, yeah, and it's funny because if you look at every movie after this and you see pictures of Tony, he's doing this almost as like honoring that soldier who died.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, the first time I saw this, I was like, wow, this was a lot better than I thought.
Hmm.
Um, and it really, every time I've watched it since, I truly appreciate how well of a movie this is compared to all other origin stories. I mean, this is one of the greatest origin story movies ever, mainly because it doesn't go through the same ins and outs of any other origin story. I mean, this movie it is about why he must change. It's not about like him him being down low like Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker and rising to be this popular figure.
Hmm.
It's not about someone who has like scars and issues like Bruce Banner with the Hulk. It's about someone who is at the highest of highs. They're on top of the world. They think they're on top of the world,
Hmm.
and they get brought down to reality, and they have to learn why they have to change for the better.
Hmm.
And ultimately it leads to this amazing hero's journey. And when I think about hero's journey in any literature, I think about this movie more than any other. And I don't think this is not my favorite origin story
Hmm.
in just in any sort of comic book movie,
Hmm.
but it's the one I think about the most when I think about a hero's journey.
Yeah. Yeah. His character arc, I gotta say, of all the MCU characters, to me, he has a continuous arc, and his is the steepest because
Mhm.
where he starts versus where he ends in the landscape of everything MCU, you could even say you raised his profile in the comics, but tremendous character arc. And we'll get into all of that, but tremendous story, man. The scene opens, or scene one actually opens with Tony Stark being introduced as a brilliant but reckless billionaire weapons manufacturer in Afghanistan to demonstrate the Jericho missile. He thrives on excess, charm, and detachment, treating war as business. His worldview is simple: innovation equals progress regardless of consequences. This scene establishes Tony's moral blindness and arrogance. And what's interesting is, in the first scene in that military vehicle, he does come across as likable, right? Because he could have been a total, just I don't know, asshat, whatever you want to call it. But he could have been just a total jerk. But he's sitting back there, and the way that the military views him at this point is almost godlike. These people riding with him are in awe of him, Jordan. And he's finally like, "What? Say it. Did I do something wrong or whatever?" And the first guy goes, "Sir, is it true you went round for round with all 12 models of Maxim?" And he says one of my favorite lines. Well, March and I had a scheduling conflict, but I made it up in December with the twins or something like that.
Mhm.
But he makes them laugh. He makes them comfortable. He remarks at how the young lady driving the car, he couldn't tell that she was a young lady, which is kind of the point, right? Because they, obviously you want equal treatment. And then he says, "But now that I look at your bone structure, wow!" So very charismatic, because he's charmed the entire vehicle. It's four folks in the vehicle. He's charmed everybody in there. They're laughing and chirping. And of course, this is the calm before the storm, because right as they're in the midst of laughing and joking and having a great time, they get ambushed, Jordan. The convoy is attacked by the Ten Rings terrorist group using Stark weapons. What do they call that, Jordan? That's a Ten Rings. That's come on. What's the word we're looking for?
I
It's an
don't know what
Easter egg.
word you.
It's an
Oh, it's
Easter egg,
Easter egg.
Jordan.
Yeah.
It's an
Yeah.
Easter egg,
Mhm.
because we would see the Ten Rings terrorist group later in Shanghai. So anyway, a piece of shrapnel lodges near his heart, and fellow captive Jensen saves him with an electromagnet powered by a car battery. This moment is Tony's first confrontation with real cost of his empire, and the fact that his weapons are killing innocent people. And the ironic piece to this is Tony is the only one who survived. All these military first personnel, and they get taken out. Now you could say, well, they didn't want to kill Tony. Okay, you got a point there. But he gets out of the car, and they launch this missile with Stark Industries on it, and that's the one that puts him in this very vulnerable state. So you could say he was a victim of his own weaponry, right? Sometimes it's the best medicine. But give me your thoughts on these first two scenes, Jordan.
Well, I'm so glad we got Shang-Chi because I remember when the Ten Rings, when I first realized that they were the Ten Rings, I was like, oh, all right. This isn't really the Ten Rings from the comics, but I guess. It was the first time I got frustrated with a movie studio like depicting a character just wrong, or a group or an organization like just wrongfully.
Yeah.
And I'd learned that like Marvel would do that over the course of time. Like you look at the Guardians of the Galaxy in general, and they're really not like that in the comics. Like some of them are more homicidal, actually.
Right.
So it was, I was like, all right, this was kind of weird that we're depicting the Ten Rings like that. So yeah, I'm so glad we got Shang-Chi later on, and I'm so glad they addressed it too. That and it only made like the actual Mandarin that bigger of a villain in Shang-Chi by looking at how small this terrorist organization was,
Hmm.
and looking how small the Mandarin and the fake Mandarin was in Iron Man 3. Like it only made that Mandarin that much more bigger of a threat,
Yeah.
because he was like, I didn't care, because he was just that much bigger. And I mean, he was like thousands of years old at this point.
Yeah.
um but the first scene where the car explodes and stuff, and he gets shrapnel to his chest.
Hmm.
I mean, I remember watching it. I'm like, oh, we're going right into it right away.
Hmm.
Okay,
Hmm.
this is interesting.
Hmm.
Um, but it is it's representative of like he's doing so much damage, and he doesn't even know it until he gets to this point. I mean, literally there's a war going on, and he's on his BlackBerry. It looks like a BlackBerry,
Hmm.
and he's trying to text in the middle of a war. And
Hmm.
I'm like, every time I watch this movie, I'm like, who is thinking about this right now? Unless he's trying to text Rhodey or something, but
I think
call
he is.
Rhodey.
I think
Just
he is.
call, yeah, like call Rhodey. But even then, Rhodey, I'm pretty sure Rhodey is in one of these vehicles. Rhodey's not looking at his phone. Like what? And they make that reference later in the movie when he comes back to America that
He
like
says, "Next time
he's
you
like
stay with me," or
yeah,
something
next
like
time you're coming with me.
that.
And I'm like there's no way like there's not a single person on this world that you should rightfully be texting in that moment.
Yeah,
And you know what? I'm shocked. And if this movie came out now, they would have some sort of don't text in the movie there's type of ad right before the movie, which involves like this scene. I just know it. Because but they weren't that creative back in 2008 to end up doing that. But yeah, this is uh there's so much wrong in this scene in terms of like what Tony's doing, but from a writing standpoint, this all makes total sense
I
to
could
play this
totally
out
see
this way.
Tony doing that because Tony is the kind of guy that can block everything else out, right?
Hmm.
You know, oftentimes we see Pepper, don't bother me right now. That like he doesn't. Tony lives in his own world, so I could totally see him. Hey man, what are we doing down here? What the hell, Rhodey? Like I could see him doing that. He is very good under pressure, right? Now,
Hmm.
again, most people who don't have an IQ of a 200 would obviously not text in that moment, but I could, and I'm not saying you're not right. You're 100%
Hmm.
right. I'm just saying I could totally see him do. That's on brand for him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If we look at a lot of his interactions, the interactions with the Avengers in Age of Ultron, when Banner's like, no, 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 no,
Hmm.
no, and he's like, you know what I mean? You know, to a certain extent, he just doesn't care what people think. He doesn't. He does not. Okay? And I don't know if that's genius. I don't know if that's just him. I don't know what that is, but he's just like, hey man, whatever. I'm gonna do it. But anyway, let's get into his character arc. So he kind of begins as an arrogant arms dealer, evolves into a hero who accepts accountability, responsibility, and transparency. And this is true throughout the entire 10-year trek, right? This is on
Hmm.
brand for him as to why he would accept the Sokovian Accords. He would totally accept that because all of his life he's just been reckless, and I believe throughout his journey he carries a certain amount of guilt. I think he does. And to your
Hmm.
point, and you and I had a conversation about this the other day, he feels like he shouldn't be here anyway. So he is always going to try and champion the cause of everyday, well, you know, of just everyday people that were impacted by his arms, his, weapons. Give me your thought on his arc. Anything we left out here? Just give me your thoughts on that.
I mean, I think this is the best character arc of anyone in the entire MCU.
Yeah.
Just because I mean he really goes from a completely different person. He like while he has the same thing surrounding him like personally, like he still has Pepper, he still has Vision or Jarvis Vision in some degree. He by the end of all of this, he still has the same money. He probably is richer. Um but at the end of the day, he had to fall down to earth, but earth, I mean, he literally had to go and be thrown into a cave, literally and figuratively, in order to come out a different person. And it is the embodiment of a character arc. Just him accepting what he has done to all of these, to the world. And I think that's what makes like Jensen such a great character is like Jensen represents the average person
Yes.
in that while he's not the average person in terms of what his life is going through right now, the average person being thrown into this situation would be thrown into Jensen's position. So Jensen has to be described as the average person in the situation for Tony. And the average person telling Tony, like, this is what you are doing to the world, whether you like it or not. And Jensen, I think, starts off his relationship with Tony as if like there's no way this dude actually like cares or he's not going to
Right.
change, and he's clearly just going to still be this arrogant rich dude who just doesn't care regardless if he gets out of this cave or not. But by the end, right before Jensen dies, like that's he realizes that he is changing, like that he can change.
Yeah.
And I think part of like what you see in the rest of the Avengers movies and the rest of the Iron Man movies, the rest of all the movies is like I think part of Tony is like wanting to honor him, and and I think that's what he ends up doing. And he always I don't like that they've never referenced him outside of one they so in the flashback scene in Iron Man 3 to start the movie, Jensen's actually there, which was really cool to see, but it's kind of weird that like Tony never did anything else to reference him unless I missed a wide open Easter egg in future films, but I mean he doesn't reference him at all. Even in the rest of this movie, he doesn't reference Jensen at all. So um maybe that's right. That's a writer's choice. I'm like, all right, I get it. Nothing. I mean, you don't really need to reference Jensen. I guess that's a personal account of Tony that he doesn't necessarily need to talk to Pepper about or anything.
Hmm.
But I mean, for even though they were together for such a short time, he did so much impact on Tony from a personal standpoint. And without Jensen's character, I don't think you can develop this character arc the way it is
You can.
because you have the average person in that situation.
Holding up a mirror.
And to yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. Pepper Potts grows from assistant to moral compass. Pepper Potts in the beginning of this movie is kind of like mom to him. Okay? Not
Mhm.
really, but kind of sort of like, you got to do this. You got to do. Did you eat your vegetables, Tony? Like, you got to do this. You want to sell the Jackson Pollock, really? And the funniest part of this to me is when Tony sleeps with the starlet who's the reporter for whatever magazine, and she gets up, and the reporter literally, and it's funny. No disrespect to the ladies, but women are so catty with each other. They're so catty, right? They take shots, thinly veiled, right? There's subtext in what they say. So she says to Pepper Potts, "Oh, he's still got you doing this? Really?" In other words, like, girl, what are you doing? You're still doing this? And the way Pepper Potts responded is beautiful. She says, "Yes, I do whatever Tony asked me to do, including taking out the trash." And I thought that was perfect. That one landed. That was, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, but to me, she begins to a lot of her arc is going from a subservient entity kind of relationship with Tony to an equal, right? And it doesn't end that way in this one, but in Iron Man 2, it definitely takes that a step further. But she kind of goes from being mom to him, right, an enabler, to a little in this movie of kind of holding him accountable, right? Um, Thoughts on Pepper Pie? I know you are not a fan of her, but just give me your thoughts on her arc in this movie.
I don't even necessarily like I don't dislike Pepper Potts. I just don't care for the character all that much throughout this film.
Okay.
Um like I just going from an assistant to sort of a not she doesn't go to a love interest in this film. It more goes into the Iron Man 2 that we see that. Um, but I've never cared for I guess it's the way this character is provided. Like we don't have we didn't have a baseline for this character at all before this film.
Hmm.
Everything we knew was in the comics or in animated shows and stuff. And I this is the baseline for Pepper Potts. Like this is I don't I think she helps Tony stay grounded throughout all of the films. Um, but I'm just I've never maybe it's Gwyneth Paltrow's portrayal of the character
Yeah.
that I just don't find too much interesting. The most interesting I feel with her is at two parts. Iron Man 3, I really like her character
Hmm.
to a point.
Hmm.
And Iron Man 3 in general there's some frustrations with that movie for me, but in this movie when they're when she gets dressed up and stuff like that and they go I don't remember where they're at in this film. Maybe that's a part of the film that just always seems blurry to me, where they're like you realize there's some sort of romantic connection building, um and she tells him to get her a drink and says dirty martini with olives, lots of olives. Um, but I like that tension because it's a romantic tension builder, and I like that scene. But we really don't touch base on that until we get to Iron Man 2.
Right.
So, yeah, I just the character's kind of there for me, to keep the plot rolling. So, and a lot of people disagree with me on that. That's just the way I've always viewed the character. I don't really care. It's not that I hate the character. I just don't think this character is all that great.
Your opinions are welcome here, sir. They are well. Not only are they welcome, they are valued. So it is. You have the right to feel how you feel, dagnammit. Let's talk about
Mhm.
Obadiah Stane, representing unchecked capitalism and entitlement without conscience. Is he kind of Darth Vader to Tony's Luke Skywalker? Kind of, they kind of have this father son thing, and it's interesting because it is throughout the film, right? Throughout the film, he's always, well, Tony, what about this? And you need to think about this. He's kind of being a dad to him. Even when they're fighting, he's like, very clever, Tony. Like, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's. So I thought that was a really cool element of it. He is greedy. He is greedy. No doubt
Mhm.
about that. Um, and he's a bit of a monster because when he and Tony are fighting, he picks up a family in this vehicle when he's wearing the Ironmonger suit, and he throws it at him, and he's like collateral damage, and I'm like, damn, like you got a mom and kids, you just collateral, really? Okay, you know what I mean? So this guy is all about world domination, and he could care less about who gets in his way, and he is probably who Tony would have become had this experience not taken place. Sorry about that. Um, Give me your thoughts on Obadiah Stane. We miss anything here? Give me your thoughts on his arc, who he is as a character. Just your thoughts.
I love this character so much because I it's when I first saw this movie. And after he gets out of the cave, I'm like, all right. And after he builds the suit, I'm like, okay, what's next? Like I didn't know where the rest of this movie was gonna go. I didn't, and when he ends up being the bad guy, I'm like, oh, okay. It really took me for a turn.
Yeah, because you
And
don't expect that.
yeah, and I think they play it off really well because he's like the first time we see him he's accepting an award
For
for
Tony.
Tony because
Right,
Tony's not there,
right,
and so we almost find him more relatable because he's willing to do that for Tony,
right.
and he is viewed as like an uncle, a father figure. He's always it's one of those things that like we think we can rely on on him like as someone to fall back for Tony to fall back on,
Mhm.
but we realize we can't, and that Tony has to do this for himself. And it's sort of a growing up point of the film for Tony is that he needs to accept that this guy is not a nice guy. He may have been in your earlier eyes,
Mhm.
but you don't actually know what he's doing.
Mhm.
So it's a great story for like I mean this just goes throughout all the entire world that like you can be smarter than your parents. You can be smarter than your aunts and uncles. You can be smarter or as an individual than those people. Just because they're older than you does not that make them more wise. It doesn't make them more knowledgeable than you necessarily. And this is a great aspect of that. That like Obadiah has gone through stuff. He knows Tony's dad more than Tony does,
Mhm.
and he thinks he knows the company more than I mean he does know the company more than Tony,
Mhm.
and he like that he knows more than Tony. He does know more, but he doesn't not what he's doing is not the right thing to be doing.
Correct.
And Tony doesn't realize what all he's doing because he was very oblivious to all of it because he was instead of accepting awards. I mean, it's straightforward in that scene. I mean, Obadiah is the one accepting the award. Who knows what the award's for? And Tony's out just partying, playing in he's I don't know what game he's playing. I don't really know like betting games and stuff like that. But like he's out with girls and stuff. He's partying like he's living the life, but he doesn't know what all's going on behind the scenes to make him his life so great.
Mhm.
So I think there's a lot of depth to this character that I mean we could probably talk about for an hour, but I mean that's what makes him such a great villain in the end is that we think we can connect with him and that he can be a good person, but he can't be. He's never been a good person.
Mhm. Well, I mean, I think again, what's interesting is Tony is the kind of person that he cares about inventing and creating. After
Hmm.
that, he doesn't care about the pomp and circumstance. He cares about what can I do to create this? That's what he does well. Obadiah Stane is a process guy. You know what I mean? And he's, basically used Tony's genius to basically sell it to the world, sell it to the stockholders, package it, and unfortunately, if you're gonna run a Fortune 500 company, you need a guy like Obadiah Stane. Now, he doesn't need to be a
Hmm.
homicidal maniac, but with that being said, you need a guy like that, right? Um,
Hmm.
but it's interesting. You said something. A part of growing up is realizing where mom and dad were wrong. I think they call it chewing the meat and spitting out the fat. You know what I mean? That's what that resonates with you. That's good. You keep that, and
Hmm.
that
Oh yeah.
doesn't, you spit it out. Now the thing about it is, as you get a little bit older, sometimes you have to come back to those lessons that
Hmm.
you spit out because you
Hmm.
realize, okay, that's what you were saying, right? But
Hmm.
anyway, we'll get into that. Let's talk about this scene right here on screen, man. This is one of my favorite
Hmm.
scenes and your favorite scenes where he's gone to basically deal with the bullies in the Middle East because they are basically taking over villages and killing people and maiming them and doing all that other stuff. And he goes to deal with those guys, and he gets shot with the tank. And then yeah, I think either the tank shot him or some sort of gun shot him. But anyway, he comes down, descends upon the earth. They fire this missile at him, and what's funny is he kind of moves back like, excuse me? Like his body language in this whole sequence is great because he kind of moves back like, I'm Iron Man. Oh,
Hmm.
okay. Watch this. And then he fires this missile. And the perfect part about it is he doesn't even watch it hit. He just turns away. And what we see him doing is he does this pimp walk. Oh, it was great. It was great,
Hmm.
Jordan. He's just like, because we see him now. I know this is Iron Man. This is Tony Stark right here. It's
Hmm.
Tony Stark. So when they fire that missile at him, he's like, no, you didn't. Okay, watch this. fires it. It's almost like Steph Curry taking a shot, and before the ball goes in the basket, he's turned his back to the opposing team, and he's doing the shimmy because he knows it's gonna go in. Right? That's what
Yeah.
this is. Give me your thoughts on this scene right here, man. I thought this was great. Give me your thoughts.
Well, this is an educational standpoint because we this is a prime example of what aura farming is.
Ah,
So there you go. There's your teaching moment for the week for current slang. Um,
you got it. No, you
no,
got to you
he's
got to give my folks a definition of what it is. The old folks are gonna be like, "What aura forming?" Give the old folks a definition of what that is.
I it's hard to describe, but like when someone is just doing something that makes no sense to like actually do, like you're just trying to look cool doing it.
Right.
And that's what he's doing in this moment. Like as soon as he turns around, he just does a walk. Like he could keep looking at it and wait for it to explode. He could, but he's so confident and he just turns around and he just wants to walk about his business and look cool doing it. And that's what
Yeah.
aura farming is. There,
All
so there
right.
you go.
So
There's your learning. There's
there
your
you
teaching
go,
lesson
ladies
of the
and
day.
gentlemen. Generation X, my folks, '70s babies, and the like. That's what aura forming is. AURA, aura, like your aura forming. So that's what that is. But yeah, man. Let's get to scene 4 when Tony comes back, and he's all, "Hey man, we got to shut everything down. We're making weapons, and we can make the world a better place." And it's shocking to Obadiah Stane. It's shocking to the military. It's definitely shocking to Rhodey. And Tony begins refining the suit in secret while struggling with PTSD, guilt, and purpose. This marks the beginning of Tony choosing morality over profit. Give me your thoughts on this.
I mean, the one. Could you repeat that again? Repeat the question again, or
No,
my thoughts on.
no, it's all good. So, he gets back. He says to the world, "Hey, we're
Yeah,
shutting down the weapons division,
yeah,
right? We're gonna make
yeah.
we're
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
make stuff for the world that makes it a better place." Yada yada yada. He begins
Mhm,
refining the suit in secret because he realizes, I cannot let this suit go, because
mhm,
if what I can do with this suit,
mhm.
if this got into the wrong hands, it's far worse, and which they get into in Iron Man 2.
Yes,
Um, but so there's that. But literally, what he's doing is he's dealing with the PTSD from the experience, the guilt, and the purpose, and why am I alive, right? And the beginning of his trek to where I'm gonna choose what's good with my moral compass, because I gotta live with me, right?
yes.
And I'm gonna choose that over profit. Give me your thoughts on that.
Well, I love that. I love when he returns because the first that everybody's like so worried about him, but he's still this. They to show that he's still the same Tony when he gets into the limo with Pepper, Pepper's like, well, we're gonna go to the hospital, and he's like, no, we're gonna go stop at Burger King.
Yeah,
Like that's I love that
that's
so
Tony.
much, and they bring that back in the smallest way in Avengers Endgame, when after the funeral, Happy and Morgan are sitting at the cabin, and Morgan's like, I want a cheeseburger, and Happy's like, your dad loved cheeseburgers too. We'll get you all the cheeseburgers you want,
I missed
and
that the
it's
first time. I didn't realize that's what
yeah.
they were doing until you brought that up the other day.
And a lot of people kind of like ignore the scene, and when some people in fact when they look at that scene face value, they're like, I don't understand. I was like, this feels like a pointless scene,
Hmm.
or some people are like, oh, it's just a little girl trying to be cute, but there's depth to that, and it comes back to this film that like the whole cheeseburger thing, he's like, I just want a cheeseburger,
Yeah.
and and he goes to the press conference, and he has his arm in a brace, And he goes, sits down, not like in front of the podium, and he's like, can everybody just like come sit down, come to my level? Um, and I think there's some representation in that too, in
Uh,
that like Tony has fallen
mhm.
and realizes how big he is as a person in this world,
He's humbled himself.
and and he wants to bring everybody
Right.
else who understands who he was
Right.
back down to earth. I think there's some sort of storytelling in that like small little scene there.
Or,
Now it's possible that means nothing, and the
or,
writers and the writers were just like, no, no, he's down, and he just
or is he
wants
getting on the
people
same
down.
level? Is he getting on the same
Yes,
level with them? Maybe.
yes,
Maybe like
yes,
let's look
he
each
is.
other eye to eye. We're all people here.
Yes.
Let's throw out
Mhm,
all these fancy schmancy topics
mhm,
and weapons and stuff. Let's just talk to each other like people.
mhm.
Um,
And I thought in when I first saw this, I was actually shocked that he right away was like, we're shutting down the arms division.
mhm.
I was shocked he did that right away. But I guess it moved the plot along very quickly. You didn't need to do any because normally when you're in the middle of a company like this, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that you need to do. You can't just say that to the public. In fact, I was shocked he said that to the public in the first place, but it's Tony,
Mhm.
so
It's
I
totally
get
on
it.
brand for Tony.
Yes,
Totally on
it's
brand.
so on brand.
Mhm.
So it made so much sense in this scene and to not even tell anyone because at the end of the day, he did not care. This new iteration of Tony, this reborn version of Tony, he understands what he needs to do and he does not care if he hurts Obadiah, he doesn't care if he hurts Pepper, he doesn't care. He wants to make the world a better place and this is the next best thing.
Yeah, his character, and you can see this throughout. He does not really care about unintended consequences. Um,
Mhm.
but Tony has some of my favorite lines, man. And the Tony, like, just he's a cash cow when it comes to lines, right? Like one of my favorite Tony lines is in Infinity War when he's like, Banner, you're embarrassing me in front of the wizards. Come on, man. That was great. That was just is Tony
That's
just he
great.
has the ability to do that. And then of course when and a lot of them involve Banner when they're in Ultron and he's like, it is criminal how you guys don't get this. And Banner's like, no, 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 no. And Tony's laughing. That's what makes the whole thing funny. You've just unleashed a murder bot on the world capable of world destruction and you're laughing about it because your point is, yeah, I did it, but I did it because of what is to come. And what is to come is far worse than Ultron and you guys need to get on my team, damn it. And that's Tony, right? And that in and of itself is hilarious. That's like that's like taking somebody's brand new Porsche and crashing it into a wall and telling them, well, we needed to see what it would do. I mean, it's criminal that you can't see the humor in this. You get what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
but that is Tony. Um,
I have a quick question, and you can cut this out. Are we recording right now?
we are, we are
We
recording.
are? Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
it's
Good.
all
All
good.
right, we can cut that out.
It's
Yeah.
all good. It's
I
all
just wanted to double check.
We're definitely recording. Yeah, no, well,
Mhm,
it's a fair question. So,
yeah.
to the audience, Jordan and I actually did Iron Man 1 the
Mhm,
other night and we recorded, but genius T Will that he is, didn't record the video. So I mean, and
mhm.
it was what, an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes or something.
Yeah,
And at the end
something
of it,
like
I'm
that.
like, oh my God, we didn't record the video. So that's,
Mhm,
we're doing Iron Man 1 and 2 today, but that is what Jordan, my colleague, my friend Jordan is basically saying, like, look, are we
mhm.
good? I mean, are we, I don't want to do Iron Man 1 3 times. Right? I get it. I get it.
It's a
Let's
good
talk.
recording.
We are
Yeah.
recording. We are. Let's talk about some things, man. So,
Mhm,
big thing, definitely accountability of power. Um, in the fact that you make these weapons, you need to be accountable for what they are and how they're used. Um, what are we doing here? Sorry about that. I'm trying to Make an adjustment here, and I don't think I'm gonna be able to do. I'm not gonna worry about it. Okay. So anyway, accountability of power. Again, the whole Spider-Man thing, with great power comes great
Hmm.
responsibility, right?
Hmm.
So there's that redemption in the fact that Tony feels responsible, because it's like all of this death, seeing this death around him, it's not just him that's impacted, but people dying at the hands of his weapons, and basically seeing how bullies will take his weaponry and really use them for nefarious purposes. And I think so. A lot of the theory is redemption, right? And it's
Hmm.
also technology, versus morality. Like, should we release some things, right? Should we clone human beings? Are we stepping into God's, and not that they do this and this, but I'm just using it as an example. Should we
Yeah.
clone human beings? Are we doing God's job there? Are we opening up something that we shouldn't? Is this going to come back and get us? That sort of thing. And of course, Obadiah Stane is all about capitalism versus conscience, because he has no conscience. Collateral damage. I love that line. And then identity. Who is Tony at the core? Who is Tony before, and who is Tony afterwards? Give me your thoughts on that.
Well, I think with Tony, I mean, obviously accountability is I feel like accountability in I think there's some sort of accountability in all superhero movies to a point. I mean, I think the only one that I think probably involves the least in is Captain America, because he knows the issues. It's just he's not physically there to be like, he knows who needs to be accountable. He knows when he needs to be accountable. And that's why I think makes Captain America a great character in general, is because most superheroes have accountability as their theme. But with Captain America, to really on Civil War is the only movie that I think accountability is involved with him, because he realized that he should have talked to Tony. But like the redemption. Yeah, I mean, Iron Man is, I mean, we've talked about that with the character arc, but yeah,
Yeah.
technology is morality. I mean, this shows like he had all the technology in the world. He could have done everything he's doing now as Iron Man. He could have done that before the
Yes.
cave incident,
Yeah.
but he realized what he needed to do, and he could have made he I think Hammer in Iron Man 2 was representative of if Tony made the suit before he was in the cave. He would have done what he did with all the different military bots. That's but him being in the suit makes it more of something people can connect to.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't need to be in the suit, and that's representative in Age of Ultron when he has all the Iron Man bots.
Hmm.
Like, he doesn't need to be in the suit, but him being in the suit eliminates computer error,
Hmm.
and he can be there to fix it in the moment. And it's also just showing people that like I'm doing I'm being a part of the change in the world.
Hmm. And it
So
also eliminates misuse of it from other
yes,
entities. That's a big thing
yes.
with him. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, it makes sense. And then yeah, capitalism versus conscience. I mean, it's representative in Obadiah Stane that like, uh, I mean, he's in it for the profit at the end of the day. Um, but Tony realizes that like, I got all the money in the world, but now I want to do something with it. That's been something that like there's not there's a lot of rich people in this world, and not a lot of them actually come down to talk to the small guys. That's what I respect. Like, and I'm gonna say this person's name, and a lot of people are gonna disagree, but Mr. Beast is an example of someone who comes down to the little guy and actually like helps them out.
Mr. Who?
Um, Mr. Beast. Is one of the biggest streaming people in He's the biggest YouTube channel in the world. Um, he just
I
he
did not know well, I'll have to look him up after this.
Oh, that's there's a learning experience. But like he's the biggest YouTuber in the world. He's the biggest streaming person in the world. He's the biggest social media influencer in the entire world. And he realizes that can use his platform to help other people, and he literally has a Mr. Beast uh community uh YouTube channel where he goes to different countries and helps people out, builds wells. I was like, he goes and does those things. A lot of people, this is where the mixed bag is like, is he doing this just to make profit off of his YouTube channel? Not really. I mean, I mean, he doesn't have to do this. That's the thing with most people, most rich people is they see as like they don't have to do this, but like he really doesn't have to do this, but he is doing it. I mean, when you have enough money, you could be doing better for the world. That's what makes Iron Man such a great character,
Yes.
is that he has all this money and now he's putting himself in the middle of the war
Hmm.
and to be the difference in the world. So, yeah, that's a huge theme. And then yeah, identity. I mean, he was just kind of living life. It's almost like when you're in college and going to parties and you're not and you're going to classes, you're late for classes, you're staying up till 3 in the morning and then going to your 9 a.m. class, drinking, gambling, doing groups and stuff like that. Like he's doing that. And the thing is, he's not in college anymore. But he's still doing all that
Okay.
because he's got the money, he's
He's
got the
living.
job.
He's living. Right.
Yes, and that's something like in college, like when you get out of college, it's the real world. You got to get that 9 to 5 job.
Hmm.
Tony didn't necessarily need that because he just had a company given to him.
Hmm.
But he realized that like he is a public figure and that everybody's going to be looking at everything he does. So while they're all looking at me, let me make the world a better place so that they can see that I'm changing as a person.
Let me ask you this, totally off topic. Who's richer, Tony
Mhm.
Stark or Bruce Wayne?
Um, Bruce Wayne, probably.
Okay.
Um, I mean, yeah, probably Bruce Wayne. I guess it depends on the iteration too, but like Bruce Wayne has enough money to buy banks and hospitals and restaurants, and he just does that off the whim. I think he's smarter with his money than Tony is, but Tony also has the money to buy all of these parts, and that's like he has a lot more gear than Batman
Yes, he
does.
does. Yeah, he does.
But Batman also has like the Batmobile, the cruisers, like he has all the vehicles too on top of that.
Hmm.
So I'm not too sure. I would probably lean Bruce Wayne because he's probably smarter with his money than Tony. Because at the end of the day, Bruce is randomly spending money to buy banks and stuff like that to show this is Bruce Wayne and to hide his identity because they're like, there's no way Batman would just do this.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
because Bruce Wayne is the persona and the person is actually Batman. But like Tony just like does I mean he's a typical rich person. Like he just buys things and he doesn't have that secret identity. So but his money probably goes into the suits.
Yeah, of course. No doubt about it.
Mhm.
So, Tony conducts test flights. He's doing the weapons trials. He's pushing the suit's limits. Funny thing is when he talks to one of his automated devices and he's like, "If you do that again, I'm gonna turn you into something or whatever." And the item kind of goes, kind of puts his head down like it's a dog that just disappointed its master. You know what I mean? Which I mean, of course, it's a machine. It wouldn't do that, but that was kind of funny. This movie did have its humor. He intervenes overseas to stop terrorists using Stark weapons. These acts aren't about glory, they're about atonement. However, Tony still operates alone without oversight or accountability. And again, that goes back to the scene that we discussed where the missiles fired at him. He kind of,
Hmm.
dodges it, looks out of the way that you're trying to shoot at me, whatever. So, um, thought that was interesting. I think in that same scene, well, not in that scene, but during that kind of montage, he is flying and testing out the suit, and he ascends into the stratosphere and begins to, I guess, ice begins to develop because the higher you go, the colder it is. And he figures it out just as he's up there, and then he begins to fall back to the earth. And of course, hey man, Jarvis helps him to kind of navigate that situation. But let's talk about Jarvis as an AI. It's interesting. When I first saw this in 2008, I really didn't think of Jarvis as an individual character. But in 2025, as much as we know about AI, you kind of have to
Hmm.
think about Jarvis and Friday as individual characters and their own
Hmm.
character arcs. But we'll get into that. But anyway, let's talk about that scene where he realizes if you fly up high enough, you're gonna ice. You got to build something in the suit for that.
Hmm.
Give me your thoughts on that.
I love that scene so much. Just it's because it's a test drive. Like
Mhm.
he's not under pressure, and he's refining the things that he built in the cave.
Yep.
Um, and he knows he can do it now. Now it's just about mixing like actual technology that he can and change an AI to adapt a more refined version of the suit.
Hmm.
And it's it's a cool scene to see test out because you're seeing this guy take his first steps
Mm.
basically, and like you'll see this guy ends up being the same guy who in the first Avengers movie flies up into space to save the missile. This is the same guy who is gonna snap his fingers to save the universe in Avengers Endgame. Like this is gonna be the same guy, and this is him taking his first steps. And you feel like looking back on this and being in this moment to watch this movie, you realize like this is the beginning. This is it. Like this guy is gonna do great things, and you're watching him do this for the first time. It's such a cool scene to reflect on in this moment, especially in this rewatch.
Yeah, without a doubt, man. Um, so Iron Man MCU versus Iron Man in the comics. MCU Tony Stark is emotional, humorous, growth driven. Comics Tony Stark is colder, more detached, and repeatedly self-destructive, and that is true. That is very true. In Marvel Comics, Tony Stark's origin occurs during the Vietnam War. The MCU modernizes this to Afghanistan, grounding the story in contemporary geopolitics. This change made Iron Man more relevant and believable for modern audiences. And you kind of hinted on that when we had our discussion on Friday, but kind
Mhm.
of elude what you were getting into with the audiences, specifically about the geopolitical or the contemporary geopolitics in Afghanistan.
Yeah, well, it goes to like I don't think Disney would be able to do this movie, and it would be a completely different movie because y- you can't because Universal Studios is a more relaxed company. They don't care if it's for children or not. And that's what I enjoyed about this first phase is that most of the movies were Universal Studios. But Universal Studios was able to combine the conflict going on in the Middle East in the real world, and it was something that we could relate to because
Right.
that's what was going on. And I know that's something that like when this movie first came out, they were like, "Oh, this is boring. This is a stereotypical oh, just war plot." But it really isn't anymore. I mean, yes, there's still war going on, but this was a foundational piece right after 9/11. Like this was 7 years after 9/11. This was still fresh into people's minds, and It was something that when people were watching, they could relate to in that moment, and which is why people thought it was so stereotypical then. But now it's not. Now this is building for the time period. We are now when we go back to watch this movie, we will understand what the world was going through in that moment in the US or in at this point Afghanistan, but in the Middle East. So we understand that more. And I think that's what makes this such a great film to go back to is that this is what part of the world was going through. So, yeah, I really, I don't think that Disney could do this movie. I'd be very curious how Disney would have done this movie if Disney had the rights from the beginning. But Universal Studios, I mean, the first Avengers movie, in my opinion, and Iron Man 2, those two movies feel the most Disney, the closest to being a Disneyified film. Um,
Disneyified. New term,
like
Disneyified.
yes, that's when it first began. And because you see the more interconnected universe and that feels on brand with Disney to this point. But when you go back and you watch Iron Man, The Incredible Hulk, especially The Incredible Hulk, like when I was rewatching it last night and I'm like, I love this. I love the feel of this because it's very different than all other Marvel movies. Thor also like really intensely, and Captain America. Captain America, th that movie is the most on brand with the comics of all the origin movies in the MCU. That is like the because it's hard to screw up Captain America. It's real. This plot is so straightforward, and that's what made it boring for some people. But for me, it was always great to look at because for those who don't know the comics, that is a perfect adaptation of the comics. And but it was that's just what Universal did. They had this griminess to the films, and that's why it was so cool to look at then. But I don't think Disney would be able to do this movie, and I'd be very, very, very curious. I don't even know if they would involve politics. I think they would just say that there's a war going on, and they would try to turn the Ten Rings into a more comic book accurate Ten Rings, I think, um, and make it more like comic booky in a sense. That's what made this movie so great is it doesn't feel comic booky.
It doesn't.
This feels like at all. I don't think this movie, and that's what Universal Studios did so great, is that these movies don't feel comic booky.
They
They
don't.
feel like they are real people going through these things with some fictional stuff going on.
No, I mean 100%, bro. 100% agree with that. That's yeah. Not and that. I don't even need to say anything else because you said it all. Um, let's get to Obadiah Stane. So we find out right after Tony goes over here and administers some justice to these very bad Afghanistanian bad dudes, whatever bullies. Okay. Um, Obadiah Stane betrays Tony. I'm sorry. We find out because he places a call to the dudes in Afghanistan, and we find out that it was Obadiah Stane that set up his kidnapping, that tried to have him killed, and we're like, because it's that shock and awe moment. Like, wait a minute, I thought he was like stepdad to Tony. You know what I mean? Or makeshift dad, or Darth Vader before he became Darth Vader, and we find out no, Obadiah Stane is Darth Vader. Darn it, he's bad. He's a bad dude. Um, and that whole shock and awe thing, and then we find that out, and then he goes to visit the nefarious villains in Afghanistan and kills them all after retrieving the Ironmonger suit. Um, and comes back and tries to develop it, and realizing that he doesn't have the engineers with the ability to do this because he even says to one of them, Tony Stark did this in a cave, and the
Mhm.
guy says to him, oh, I'm not Tony Stark. So
Mhm.
Obadiah finally says, you know what? I'm going to go to the source and I'm going to take it from Tony. And he pulls out this weapon that's, I guess it's an audible weapon that, basically paralyzes you. And it's really cruel because he takes Tony's heart, right? So again, not a nice guy because he's trying to kill Tony for the second time. Um,
Mhm.
and, again, stealing the arc reactor and building the Ironmonger suit, Obadiah represents Tony's past, unchecked greed, ego, weaponized capitalism. The conflict becomes deeply personal, creator versus corruptor. And this is true. Give me your thoughts on the scene, on the interaction, specifically when Obadiah renders Tony powerless and literally tries to take the beat to his heart, literally tries to take the arc reactor from his chest, killing Tony or trying to kill
Mhm.
Tony. Give me your thoughts in this moment. What's going through your head?
I mean, I when I first saw this movie, I was shocked that he actually did that in the moment, but it's it leaves you stressed out because you're like, all right, Tony has like minutes to live. So like what is he gonna do? And then we realized that Pepper gave him that gift of like his original arc
Right,
reactor,
right.
which probably had some juice left in it, and which was a great way of circling back to like again, there's some parts with Pepper Potts where I'm like, oh yeah, I like what you did there. I like her gifting it back to him as like especially when we circle back to Endgame, we go to Endgame and we see at the funeral literally that arc reactor with the same message around it saying Tony Hawk does have a heart. Um, and but in this scene, like I'm pretty sure the weapon he used would either I'm pretty sure that's an actual like weapon that we now have, which is weird. Um, okay. I've from I've videos I've seen, I'm like, yeah, we now have this weapon in the military. I'm like, all right, that's kind of scary. Anyways, um, yeah, it's kind of like haunting in that moment because like Tony's looking at this guy who is as a father figure to him. I mean, he at this point Tony doesn't like his father. He doesn't think his father ever did anything, but we learn in future films, especially in Endgame, that closes out that chapter of his life. But in this moment, like this is his father figure, and he's trying to kill him in the moment, and he's also saying that he's gonna go and kill Pepper Potts in that moment, and like I think that was the added. You see, like Tony's in this paralyzed state but his eyes do all the acting. Robert Downey Jr. does such a great job in this scene with his eyes because you can see in his eyes what he's thinking the entire time, even though he can't do anything with his mouth, with his head, with his body at all. So, as soon as he mentions Pepper, that's when there's like a flick in the switch in his eyes, and he realizes like I have to go and like do something.
Yeah.
So it's such a great acted scene by Jeff Bridges, by Robert Downey Jr. And yeah, it's such a cool scene, especially when you get to when he's so close to getting to that arc reactor and he just kind of slumps down and you get the little robot hand that like hands him his arc reactor, and I love that whatever. I don't know what that robot's called at all. I don't and nobody ever mentions it, but we all know that robot's really cool and that Tony makes fun of this robot all the time, like during the test flight sequence he was like blowing a fire extinguisher at random times. So it was really funny. We're like, oh, it's a little pet that Tony has, but it's a
Right.
robot.
Right. And to your point, that in that going back and watching this movie,
Hmm.
that robot kind of reminded me of Crypto, just always doing stuff at the wrong
Hmm.
time. And then
Yeah.
when he needed him the most, right? How Crypto came in there
Hmm.
and whooped up on Lex Luthor. Shout out
Hmm.
to Crypto. So happy you did
Mhm.
that. Hated that guy. That was this robot kind of. Let me finally do something right and get this arc. And here you go, Tony.
Mhm.
And I thought that was really cool. So
Mhm.
you're 100% right there, man. 100% right. Um, how does this fit into the MCU? Well, I mean, it's the first step, dude. It's the cornerstone film of the MCU. It introduces Nick Fury, Shield, and the Avengers Initiative. Nothing in the MCU works without Iron Man landing the way it did. And
Mhm.
you and I were talking about that the other day
Mhm.
because you, I don't want to say proposed, but your thought process was if the Hulk had been released first, that we would still be here, right? That was your thought process.
Yes,
You still feel that way?
100%. Even rewatching The Incredible Hulk, because The Incredible Hulk was a bust when it first came out.
Mm.
It's not a bad film
It's
at
not a
all,
bad film at
but
all,
it's not a great film
right?
either.
But it's not a bad
Like
film.
Iron Man's a great film.
Mm.
It's a really good, great film.
Hmm.
And I don't think it's one of the greatest films of all time. Like I'm not gonna put it in even for that year. I'd be curious to see what my favorite film of 2008 was, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't Iron Man. Um, but yeah, if The Incredible Hulk comes first, I th- I think we're still in the same spot. I don't think anything changes. And I think it puts Iron Man on a bigger pedestal, the fact that it came out first. And I don't care. I look at the film the same exact way. If this movie came out 3 years later, I'd view the film the exact same way. If this was the movie that came out right before the Avengers and we didn't even get Iron Man 2, I would view this film the same way. And you could theoretically watch the Avengers without watching Iron Man 2. You could just be like, "Oh, Tony upgraded his armor." Like when you're watching the first Avengers movie. Because Iron Man 2 doesn't really provide all that much, but we'll get into Iron Man 2 later. Um, but I I really think that if Iron Man 2 had come out second or third, we'd be viewing the film the exact same way, and the MCU would go on as planned. Um, uh, because I think the Incredible. Look at it this way. You remember the Mummy movie with Tom Cruise that came out a couple years ago?
Hmm. Hmm.
And that movie was supposed to kick off the monster universe.
Hmm.
Now that movie was not good. It was not good at all, and that's why it was a bust at the box office. The Incredible Hulk did okay
Hmm.
at the box office. People saw it and weren't as thrilled with it, but they also didn't think it was this really bad movie either.
I like Ed
So
Norton. I think Ed Norton's a great actor.
yes,
He's a lot to deal with, but a
yes,
great
oh
actor.
yes.
Great actor.
But the fact that, and obviously they were filming The Incredible Hulk and Iron Man at similar times, uh, but both of them came out the same year. So yeah, if you switch the two, I don't think The Incredible Hulk gets put on the pedestal. But I don't think anyone's even thinking about like, oh, I can't believe we started with this movie. Nobody's thinking about that at
Okay.
all. But because Iron Man was this good, very good to great film, people are pointing at it as, oh, look at how great this film is because it kicked off this universe.
Yeah.
I never viewed it like that.
Okay. All right.
And that's why I think it is the most overrated Marvel film ever. I have a very high score for it because I think it's a great movie, but I don't think it's one of the greatest films of all time. And that's where there are critics out there that have this as the best MCU film. But I don't know how you can
Yeah.
go about watching the entire Infinity Saga and Multiverse Saga and say that this was the best film that they put out.
I
I
agree.
have a hard time agreeing with that.
I agree with you 100%, brother. Let's get to it, man. Iron Man versus Ironmonger. Let's get ready to rumble. Final battle in Los Angeles pits Tony against Obadiah's larger, brutal suit. Tony wins not by strength, But ingenuity and sacrifice, Pepper overloads the arc reactor, destroying the Ironmonger. Tony literally destroys the embodiment of his old self. Well, I didn't get that the first time I saw it, but I tell you what, man, let's get it on, man. What a fight. What a fight. Really enjoyed that. Again, Obadiah Stane, what I think Jeff Bridges does a great job of is he is a monster, but you would not think it to talk to him. You don't know the monster within him. Like Jeff Bridges, this character, Obadiah, could be a serial killer. You never know it, right? You ever
Mhm.
notice how, like, when they interview the neighbors of serial killers, they're like, he was the nicest guy. I would never think that he would have 20 people buried in his basement and that he bit off the
Mhm.
heads of random strangers. Like, you would never think that. That's Obadiah's thing. You don't realize the monster within until you're dealing with the monster within. I thought he did a great job of carrying that. And in the first half, he's kind of Dr. Jekyll. And in the second half, he's Mr. Hyde or whatever. Good guy, bad guy, whatever you want to call it. But they get after it, man. And the one thing you realize in this sequence is that Obadiah is such a capitalist. He doesn't care who he has to kill. He doesn't care how many people he has to kill. If you get in his way, like he says for the fourth time, collateral damage. I still suck at the line, but whatever. Um, so it's funny in this scene. He's threatening Pepper, and he says to her, "Your services are no longer needed." And all of a sudden, Tony shows up. Um, I hate guys that kill women. I really hated him more there. Like, you don't have to do that. Why are you doing that? You don't have to do that to Pepper. Like, you're a
Mhm.
jerk. Anyway, Tony shows up. They get after it. The fight spills over into the freeway, and Obadiah picks up a car and throws it at Tony. Tony catches it, and the funny part is the lady and her children in the car are so paralyzed by fear. She just, hey man, as soon as she hits ground, she hits the gas, runs over poor Tony, right? And I mean, I get it. She was afraid. And then Obadiah Stane grabs a motorcyclist, throws him off the bike, hits Tony with it, right? Smashes him up against the bus, and they get after it. And Tony says to himself, "All right, the only way I can get him is to get him in the air where his suit starts to ice." And he does that. The one thing about Tony, and I think this is where he and Captain America are similar. Although Cap is far better. Cap is a warrior. Cap is a master strategist at war. But Tony is a master strategist at thinking his way out of things, especially with the conditions that he's dealing with, right? So I think he's only at this point when in the fight, he's got what, 5, 10%, 12% left, and he takes off thinking, all right, I'm going to get him up in the air. I'm going to get him in the stratosphere. He doesn't know about the icing or the need for de-icing in a suit. I can probably get him that way. And it works out that way, right? They take off, they get into the stratosphere, and Tony, again being perfect, says, "Did you think about the icing?" And just as Obadiah says, "Icing? What?" You see his suit shut off, and he falls back
Mhm.
down. Now, obviously the AI had to kick in. It's kind of inferred there, or he would have been dead, right? And they're back on the roof and they're getting after it. And I think Tony, basically, his suit is kaput. He's got nothing left. He got back to the roof on backup battery power, and he says to Pepper, "You got to throw the reactor. That's the only way we're gonna get out of it." But anyway, give me your thoughts on this scene and what's going on here.
I do want to hint. I want to talk about something you said with how Cap and Iron Man, they that strategy that they have is being similar. I think that's what makes them such great leaders for the Avengers.
Yes.
Is that because they're on opposite sides of the spectrum,
Mm,
but they both know how to strategize from different viewpoints.
yes.
And that's something I don't necessarily think Thor's great at. I don't
No.
think Bruce Banner's great at.
Nobody else is.
Um, I think Natasha and Hawkeye are, but they don't have the physical component that Iron Man or Captain America have.
And I
Um,
don't think they are. I'm not going to say Natasha's not a leader, but I don't know
Hmm.
that she's led in war. You get what I'm
She
saying?
doesn't want to be a leader,
Correct.
I think, at the end of
Correct.
the day.
Correct.
Um,
Correct.
sh- and she's okay with that. And
Yeah.
I mean, she's been really clear about that. And same thing with Hawkeye. I don't think he wants to be a leader. He just wants to go home to his family. But that might have been the issue with the multiverse saga, is that we didn't have that strategist. I think the closest we had was Doctor Strange. And I think we all kind of assumed Doctor Strange was going to take over that mantle, and Black Panther. I think those two were going to be the next in line to lead the next group of
Yeah.
Avengers,
Yeah.
because they're both great strategists
Hmm.
and they're both physical competitors.
Yes.
In Doctor Strange, maybe not in like fist fighting. I mean, Multiverse of Madness kind of shows that he does have some fist fighting,
Hmm.
but in his sorcery. And Black Panther, yeah, physically he can
Yeah.
fight in any situation.
And he's
But both,
extremely intelligent. So
yes,
he is a
both
strategist. Yeah.
are great strategists. Now, I don't think that they would have butt heads like Tony and Cap,
No.
because I think Doctor Strange and T'Challa both were on similar playing fields, in that they they grew up like pretty pretty good, and they're at that point like uh Doctor Strange was a doctor before he was a surgeon
Right.
before he got his powers. T'Challa grew up in royalty. So like they were kind of already on this high pedestal.
Right.
So you didn't have that Captain America. And I think at this point Peter Parker was not. I don't think he didn't go through the stuff that he went through with No Way Home yet.
Hmm.
So I don't think and I think he was a little too young to be that next Captain America. But I think he would have gotten to that point. But what made them butt heads, and it was fun to watch, is that Tony was he had that arc where he was the highest of highs, lowest of lows, then highest of highs, versus Cap had to slowly work his way from, he was already down low and had to work his way up to that high. So that's what made them such great leaders and had that great chemistry, and something that they're clearly bringing back in Avengers Doomsday. Because it's hard to replicate that. You need someone that's like Captain America, that's been through that low and is now at the high, like Spider-Man, but he doesn't have the experience of Captain America. And then Iron Man going through that change, even at the highest of highs. You had that in Black Panther, you had that in Doctor Strange. I mean, especially in Black Panther, like he is in that highest of highs. He realizes what his ancestors and his father had done wrong to Killmonger, and ultimately, I mean, he was close to death, uh, but ends up being brought back to life and realizes that he needs to change. I think Black Panther goes through that. I think Doctor Strange goes through that. Doctor Strange, he was a surgeon, goes through the accident, hits the lowest of lows, and comes back up highest of highs. Um, so I think we had the Iron Man side figured out, but I don't think we had the Captain America side quite figured out to for that next level of Avengers post Endgame. Now, when it comes to this fight, I love this fight so much, because it there's you're in the middle of just a city. I'm pretty sure they're in Los Angeles to this point. Um, you're just it's two similar style of hero villain. It's a stereotypical 2000s movie, in that 2000s movies tried to have a hero and a villain that had similar skill sets.
Hmm.
So, but and that's kind of what they were doing here. And you'll notice that like not many you'll notice there's some of that gets replicated in future films. Doctor Strange and Black Panther are two of them. You'll notice that Black Panther and Doctor Strange kind of follow the same formula of Iron Man, and that's where the issue of that MCU formula started. I think it started all the way back in that first Iron Man movie because that was what worked of the phase one. So I mean, you have sorcerer versus sorcerer and Doctor Strange, a good versus evil, Black Panther. You have the literally, I mean, a lot of people have issues with Black Panther in that like Killmonger and Black Panther's suits are so similar and their CGI. So in that final battle, which I'm fine with the final battle, I love the final battle. Um, People have a tough time figuring out like who's who
Hmm.
because of that. So, but I still like it. I still like that's my nostalgia. I like the two sides of the same coin type of fight.
Hmm.
And seeing this is it was just really cool. And I mean, I had all the action figures from the first Iron Man movie. I had the original suit. I had the silver suit, the red and gold suit, and then I had the not Killmonger, the Ironmonger suit. And yeah, those are always so cool to see.
Mm. Let me ask you this. It seems like Peter Parker would identify more with Captain America,
Yes,
being that they were both from humble beginnings. Why do
yes.
you think? Is it because Tony is ultimately who he wants to be? That he, man crushes on Tony so much that he's like looks at him like a surrogate father. Like, give me your thoughts on that.
I think Peter just needed someone to give him the opportunity. And I think if it was Captain America who walked through that door, he'd view Captain America the same way that he viewed Iron Man. Um, because Peter didn't have like a father figure. I mean, his
Yeah.
Uncle Ben
Okay.
ended up dying. I mean, we don't hint at Uncle Ben very much in the MCU, but and I'd be very curious why that
Yeah.
is.
Hmm.
But they just don't want to hint at that whatsoever. But he doesn't have a father figure to look at. And I think if I think Tony being there, he he immediately looks at him as a father figure. But I do think if roles are reversed and you have Captain America walking through that door, I think he's viewing Captain America the same exact way.
Okay.
Um, I think, but I think what makes it better that it was Iron Man is that Peter is such a humble kid because of his upbringing, and but Tony clearly sees that this kid can be smarter than him,
Yeah.
and that's what makes it so great. Like if Captain America were to walk through that door, or like they're both humble beings that you wouldn't feel that connection, but Tony being that like not so humble father figure, and like some you realize sometimes you'll see Tony like Peter will say something and then Tony looks at him and and Peter's thinking to himself like yeah what I said was stupid, but Tony's like no well no what you're saying is really smart and it's something I never even thought of, like in Civil War where where um where he's like, has anyone ever seen that old
Empire Strikes
movie,
Back. Yeah.
The
Empire
Empire
Strikes Back.
Strikes Back?
Yeah.
And and Rhodey's like, how old is this kid? Like because and then Tony and it like you'll see Tony, it clicks in his mind. He's like, I know exactly what this kid's talking
Right.
about.
Right. Right.
And and then in Infinity War, this one line, which everybody laughs at, but I understand this line completely. When Peter says you can't you can't save the neighborhood if there's no you can't be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man if there's no neighborhood.
Right. Right.
And I've always thought about that line
Hmm.
because he's willing to do anything to make sure that his surroundings, his neighborhood is okay.
Protected. Right. It's a big
And
picture view.
in that moment, like Tony looks at him like, at first he's like, that was the dumbest, corniest thing you could have said. But then it clicks in his head like, I get it.
Yeah.
And he doesn't, and he moves on. He understands exactly what he's
Right.
saying.
Right.
So, and I mean, my theater laughed when Peter Parker originally said that.
Hmm.
But and I guess a lot of people don't understand that line, which was kind of weird to me. Like I completely got it the first time I saw it. Was like, yeah, if there's no like he wants to be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. If there's no neighborhood, how can he be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man? It's pretty
Right.
clear and obvious, I
This
thought to
is
me.
the immediate
Uh,
need right here,
yes.
and it's got to be all hands on deck, is what he's saying.
Yeah, but Tony and Peter, them being on opposite sides of like I guess the emotional spectrum is why they work so well together.
Yeah. Plus, I think Tony sees a little of himself in the fact
Yes.
that they're both geniuses. And to your point, a lot of things Peter will say, Tony will be like, okay, you know what I mean. Peter doesn't have the panache, right,
Yes.
or the savoir faire that Tony has.
Mm,
He doesn't have the flair, but he's got the nuts and bolts, and he's really smart. And I think Tony can relate to that, right?
yeah.
And especially because Tony lost his parents at a young age, so I think they
Mm,
have that in common as well. So maybe I have to talk. Maybe they do have more in common. I don't know. But anyway, let's talk about favorite scenes, man. Obviously, the cave escape in the Mark One suit. Love that. Love the first flight test. Love the I am Iron Man press conference. That was funny because everything is like,
mhm.
okay, stick to this. And Tony's like, you know what? I am Iron Man. And it ends right there. Perfect ending. And then the Jericho missile demonstration. And he's like, my dad said that the perfect weapon is one that you never have to fire. I respectfully disagree. The perfect weapon is the one you only have to fire once. And then and I was great. That was great. So I enjoyed that. And then of course it's not on here, but the one where they shoot the missile at him and he kind of and then does the pit. Like I just thought that was so cool. Like if I had to do this all over again, that would be my number one favorite scene. I didn't think about it when I was doing this. Did we leave anything out? Any other scenes you can think of, or are we good here?
I mean, those are my favorite scenes. One small scene that's always funny when I watch is when Pepper's helping Tony and trying to change the arc reactors. And she's like, "Oh, there's
Yeah.
pus," and he's like, "Yeah," and it's like a game of Operation, and it's so funny. And he's like, and she's like, what's going on?" And he's like, "Nothing. I'm just going to the cardiac arrest." Like, like
But
it's so
he's
funny.
cool under pressure. He is.
Yeah.
That's the thing about
Mhm.
because he realizes if he panic, she's gonna panic. So that's why he's like, no, I'm just going to cardiac arrest. No big deal. And she's like, oh my, you know what I mean? And I think those scenes between them are great, where
Yeah.
she has an absolute girl moment, like in the
Hmm.
second one when she's like, oh my god, you were dying, and they have this argument, and
Yeah.
Natasha's like, guys, you guys can make love later. Can we, can you guys can kiss and make up later? Can we? But
Hmm.
it's funny because that is a part of their dynamic
Hmm.
throughout the entire universe. But she's like, I can't believe you were dying and you didn't tell me, and da da da. And he was like, I was busy fighting whatever, blah 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 blah. And that whole interaction is great. So yeah, I did like that,
Um,
man.
the one, and I'll touch base on the I Am Iron Man press conference too. So that wasn't in the script initially, him to say I am Iron Man.
Really?
That was
Okay.
something
I
Robert
didn't.
Downey Jr. said himself. He said they were going through it. He was supposed to say a bunch of things to end the press conference, and then literally what you see him put down the note card and say the truth is I am Iron Man. Kevin Feige loved that so much, and now Kevin Feige at this point is a producer, or like he's not the one directing or
Right,
writing,
right, right.
but he loved that so much he said keep it, keep this in. And I love this scene so much because up to this point, the Fantastic Four had been the only movie that like publicly known superhero identities. Um, and even then, everybody knew who the Fantastic Four was.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't have masks and costume. They didn't have masks to
Mm-hmm.
hide behind.
Mm-hmm.
But with Iron Man, this was such a choice because as you see like what this would do to Peter if they didn't if his identity was revealed,
Mm-hmm.
like he would have so many people so many villains going after his family,
Mm-hmm.
but Tony realizes either way, people are gonna come after me. Like I'm a rich billionaire playboy philanthropist.
Hmm.
Like either way, people are coming after me. So like you can come after me, but you got to realize I am Iron Man. And like that was such a critical moment for me because I realized, oh, this is crazy, and I wouldn't feel this same feeling until Spider the end of Spider-Man Far From Home. I
Yeah,
wouldn't feel that same feeling in the MCU
of shock
when
and awe,
Peter
like,
Parker's
oh my
identity.
god,
That
yeah.
yes, that shock and awe that like this is how we're gonna end the movie. That was incredible. And yeah, I didn't stay for the end credit scene because I look, it was 2008.
Who
There
knew?
was no I didn't know what an end credit scene was. So yeah.
Right. No, I mean nobody did. You know what I mean? No one
Mhm.
did. So yeah, that is on brand, man. Yeah, I think this is definitely Robert Downey Jr.'s defining role. And don't get me wrong, he's had some other movies in which he was great. Robert Downey Jr. is a great actor, but if there was ever a person created to play a role, it is Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. And nothing else needs to be said about that. It is what it is. Um, Criticisms: underdeveloped villain, simplistic geopolitics, basic final pattern by modern standards. I don't know that you had time to really develop Obadiah Stane.
Mhm.
Um, so I mean, it was what it was. I don't. I'm okay with this film, and it's. I don't think you need to do anything to change it. I don't know that 20 minutes of developing his character is going to improve the overall outcome. So I didn't agree with that. But give me your thoughts on that.
Well, originally Obadiah was not supposed to be the main villain of this movie. John Favreau wanted it to be the Mandarin,
That's
but
right.
in the writers' room, um, one of the writers said, um, he was like, I th- I think the Mandarin would be a little too fantastical for this film when you want a more grounded film. And when he said that, now John Favreau's in this room, Kevin Feige's in this room. You have a lot of very important and will be really important people in the entire MCU, and they already know the universe that they're building. And it went silent for 10 seconds, and what I've heard, it felt like an eternity.
Hmm.
And then John Favreau said, "You're right." And so originally Ironmonger was going to be one of those things that over the sequels would become the villain, and that we would see him slowly develop in this movie. But originally they were going to have the Mandarin, and I'm so glad they didn't do the Mandarin because yeah, it would have been a little too fantastical. And that's something with the Universal movies. Like you will watch Thor, and Thor is fantastical, but you feel like this, it all makes sense. Even though like I have a lot of criticisms with the first Thor movie, um and over I don't think it's aged very well, but they're the stylistic choice, like you don't feel like it's overly like insane for this entire like movie to exist in this universe. But like Iron Man having this like war efforts and having him build the suit literally in a cave, this like griminess to this film, it only makes sense that someone like Ironmonger be the villain, and that if they were to have the Mandarin, it would feel a little out of place.
Yeah, especially this being a first movie, and a lot of these folks,
Yes.
maybe they're not comic book nerds like us. So I get
Mhm.
it. I don't have an issue with Thor 1. Thor 2 sucked. Thor 2 would be in my bottom three,
We'll revisit that.
or at least five. Thor
We're
2
we'll
sucked.
revisit it very close. We'll revisit it.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Thor 1 I was all right. Thor 2, ugh. Anyway. Let's see here. All right, Age Like Wine, practical suit effects, RDJ's performance, absolutely. Age Like Milk, some early CGI and Middle East stereotype. You know what? I didn't. I was okay with the CGI in this film. It was cool. I didn't have an issue with it.
I
Um,
think this is the peak version of this Iron Man suit CGI. I don't think I
yeah,
think every film that follows this, I think the CGI is not as good as this movie. And every time I watch Endgame, Infinity War, I think of the same thing because that dirt and griminess, you literally see it on the suit. It's something you'll never see in any other film after this.
yeah,
But like you see it at the end of Iron Man 2 a little bit with
yeah.
him and Rhodey. And but you don't see it in Iron Man 3. That was Universal Studios because as soon as Disney got access to Iron Man, it felt clean. It felt the CGI felt a little too clean. There wasn't that dirt and griminess that you'd
Okay,
see. You saw it a little bit at the end of the final battle in Endgame. That was probably the closest we would get. But in my opinion, I think the CGI for the suits in this was at its peak in the entire MCU.
gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Some things we didn't know. Much of the dialogue was improvised.
Yes.
RDJ rewrote scenes on set. Wow. Favreau fought to cast Downey. That's good.
Because he had such a great. You can watch his audition now. I think it got released a couple years ago, but you can watch his audition and you watch it and you're like, I don't know how you look at anyone else.
Yeah.
Like he literally, you could hear people in the background laughing because of what he was saying to this one girl who's reading lines, and he was so charismatic in that moment, and I'm like I don't know how you see anyone else but Tony
And that.
Stark right now.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fair. The suit was partially practical.
Yes.
Terrence Howard was the highest paid actor. Okay, that makes sense. Because Terrence has always said, well, they wanted me to take a pay cut. I didn't know he was the highest paid actor in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So that he didn't say that. And again, I'm not coming for Terrence Howard. I'm just saying that from my recollection, and I could be wrong, but whenever he tells the story, he's always like, they wanted me to take a pay cut in the second one, and I told them no, right? And there's probably more to it than that, but I didn't know he was the highest paid one in the first one, so that makes sense. Jeff Bridges didn't understand the script.
Yeah, that's really well known. Jeff Bridges is not a Marvel nerd at all. He's an
Okay,
actor.
okay,
So like he doesn't understand the whole concept, but he loves talking about this movie. He loves talking about all of, like what ended up coming out after this movie too.
okay.
He just doesn't fully understand. But but what I find funny is like he would be heavily involved in the Tron franchise right after this, and in my opinion, Tron gets a little messy too.
What'd you think of Tron Ares? For me, it was just kind of meh. You know what I mean? It
Yeah,
wasn't bad,
nah.
but it was. Dude, I did it to myself, Jordan. I was so excited about. And when I went to see it, I was like,
Jared Leto. Jared Leto. Nobody. He ruined. I'm telling you, every time I watched him in that movie, all I kept thinking was, I hate that this is Jared Leto, and I feel like if it was someone else, this movie would be better. But I hate. He's my least favorite actor or actress in all of Hollywood because he
damn,
ruins every single
damn.
franchise that I see him in.
Wow.
I hate that he's been in all my favorite franchises. Like at this point, is he gonna be cast in Harry Potter as like someone as Dumbledore? Like I'm so frustrated and agitated at Jared Leto because
Clearly.
and I've seen there's one movie with him that I love dearly, and it's not involved in any of these franchises, but I love it so much and I think he does such a great role, but I don't think he does anything similar to that in anything else he
What
does.
movie is it that you love with Jared Leto?
I gave it a 9.5 out of 10. Uh, let me see what movie this was.
George is going into his magical spreadsheets here.
I am let me see. So, highest rating. All right, Justice League, Zack Snyder's Justice League, he's in it, but like, yeah, Mr. Nobody. It's such a mind screwing film because he goes through. If you like multiverse and like the idea of parallel universes, he is able to see you see all the different lives he would have gone
In
through,
different
and he
universes.
sees all those lives too had he chosen like different paths in his life. Like literally opens up with um like he's on some train tracks and he could go left, he could go right, or he could continue going straight, or he could go back. And by going right, his whole life changes. By going left, his whole life changes. By going straight, his whole life changes. But you see all those outcomes.
Mm,
And it's such a beautiful movie, to see all the different outcomes of life that he goes through.
mm.
And yeah, it's such a great movie, and he lives a very long time. Um, but it's one of those movies you can't be doing anything else but
But
watching this
watching
film.
it.
You have
Okay.
to sit down and pay full attention because otherwise you're going to be like, what the heck is going
Okay.
on? I when I first saw this movie, I rewatched it the next day.
Okay.
um because I was like, that was such a great, it was on Tubi. And like at that point I was like watching a whole bunch of things on like Netflix for the first time. I was watching Supernatural for the first time. So like I was in college and I was looking for movies that would like mess with my mind. Like I was like I googled like screwy movies, and I it kept I saw on TikTok someone suggesting Mr. Nobody, and that it was like parallel universes and stuff, and because I always find parallel universes to be very interesting, and especially like the grandfather paradox, like you go back in time, you step on an ant and then you kill Adolf Hitler. It's one of those things. But like to see the different outcomes in one's life if you chose just one simple path versus another path
Hmm.
is such a great film, and I love the way it's written, and I think Jared Leto does a great job in that film and only that film.
Mm. Oh, well. Sucked and everything else. Okay. The
Yeah.
cave scenes were shot on a soundstage. Marvel financed the film themselves. Well, they went big
Hmm.
on that one. And hey, man, no risk, no reward. They've clearly been rewarded by that. Nick Fury's scene almost didn't happen. And this film literally saved Marvel Studios. I think we can agree with all of that. Iron Man rating, Foundation of the MCU, Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 94%. IMDb gave it a 7.9%. Metacritic gave it a 79. Um, let's talk about some Easter eggs, Jordan. Ten Rings organization introduced as Tony's captors paid off in Shang-Chi, which had nothing to do with it. Now, I wonder if in this whole doomsday, multiversal, whatever, I wonder if they will tie all of that in together. And they probably won't. It's me being petty. But I just wonder if they will. Captain America's shield prototype seen in Tony's workshop. The shield soft launch. Coulson struggles to say the acronym. Stark Expo mentions Legacy tease for Iron Man 2. And the Nick Fury post-credit scene, Avengers Initiative was introduced. The Ironmonger armor, direct visual pull from Marvel Comics, and the arc reactor as a symbol, heart plus humanity metaphor begins. Anything else we forgot? Anything else in there you can think of, or
um I mean, there's other like small Easter eggs probably here and there throughout the film, probably like with his suits and stuff like that. But I think that's the baseline of like all the Easter eggs and stuff. I mean, all Marvel movies have so many Easter eggs. I mean, you can watch YouTube videos that spend a whole hour with like 143 different Easter eggs in one film.
no?
Oh,
Okay.
143 Easter eggs in in a trailer.
Yeah, we're not gonna do
Like yeah,
that. We're not
and
gonna do that.
but I think the one thing for me is the post credit scene with Nick Fury. because I didn't watch that the first time. It was actually, it would be years before I would see it for the first time. Um, and that was when I got it on DVD. When I got this movie on DVD was the first time because I think I had the credits just playing and it kept playing over and over again. And I was doing something else, and then I'm like, "What the heck is this?" I thought it was a deleted scene or bloopers because I mean bloopers were heavily. If you ever watched uh what the heck is it Yours, Mine, and Ours was a family comedy in the 2000s. I love that movie so much. It has Drake Bell and Miranda Cosgrove in it. Um, and there's so many bloopers in the credits, and I love seeing that so much. But like, I thought it was a blooper reel, and I'm like, I remember I was doing something else, and then I like stopped everything I was doing, and I was like, what do you mean there's more?" And I had seen the end credit scene for The Incredible Hulk because I had seen it in a newspaper. Here, look, I grew up in a weird time frame, okay? I was in the middle of like I grew up at the right before social media and during social media. So I was able to see that transition very well. So we still had newspapers and phone books when I was growing up. But I remember that I saw the transition where we got rid of all of that. Um, and I remember seeing in the newspaper for the Incredible Hulk to stay after the credits and that there was an extra scene. And I was like, all right. So I remember telling my mom when we saw the Incredible Hulk because the Incredible Hulk's my mom's favorite superhero, and I always loved the Incredible Hulk. And I remember seeing Tony Stark, and I was so dumbfounded at the idea that we would be having some sort of crossover. And when he says the Avengers Initiative, I or not the Avengers Initiative. He says something along the lines of like my friends. And it was in that moment I'm like, are they teasing the Avengers?
Hmm.
And I'm like, you can't have the Avengers without Captain America.
Hmm.
And then we got the Captain America stuff. I was like, we're gonna get the Avengers. I was so excited in that moment. Because at that time crossovers only happened in like TV really,
Yeah.
in television shows. Like the biggest crossovers to that point before then for me were two things. One, we got a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Mighty Morphin Power Rangers crossover at one point,
Hmm.
and like with the 1990 suits of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And then there was this show, Jimmy Neutron and Fairly Odd Parents on Nickelodeon, and Jimmy Neutron and Timmy Turner did multiple crossover episodes that those all blew my mind because the concept that you could get two different like writers teams to work together
Hmm.
to make a coherent story and bring them together sounded so bizarre and crazy. But to do it in film, I'm like, I don't know how this is going to work.
Hmm.
And then when the Avengers came out, I'm like, that was beautiful. And it was my
It
favorite
was.
movie of all
It was.
time
It
for a
was.
very long time.
It was. It really was. You and I had a discussion on Friday, and
Hmm.
damn it, Jordan. Damn it. Damn it. Damn it. It pains me to say this. It really does, Jordan.
Hmm.
But I think you were right. Damn it. Oh, that hurt to say that. Oh.
Hmm.
Oh, that hurt to say that. Because I thought, okay, well, every movie after that, I can't use impact. I just can't do it. So my rating for this film is an 8.5. I thought it was a great film. It is definitely the movie that kicked everything off and saved Marvel, but I'm not going to count the impact of it because there have been terrible movies that have also impacted it, and that's just going to screw up further ratings when we get deep into this. So I'm going to give it an 8.5. God dang it, Jordan. Um, that's my
Are you
rating.
sure you want to do it? Are you
Yeah,
sure you want to do that?
yeah, because
Okay.
that's a slippery slope, right?
Yeah,
Because what I
it
always
is.
think about with you is okay, well, I get there's a movie. What if another 8.5 comes after that? That has an impact. Or what if it's a 7 that had, but the impact is great. It just
Mhm.
so I took it out. So I gave it an 8.5. in my rating. But
Like
I enjoyed it.
otherwise, the first X-Men movie would probably be higher, no?
Probably, probably,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Or
I
Blade too.
or yeah, or Blade. I I gave it a shout out to Wesley Snipes. I gave it 8.5. What's your rating for this?
Yeah, I give it an 8.5 too. I mean, like for me, a 9 is a great film, and an 8 is a very good film, and and 8. This is the definition of an 8.5 for me.
Yeah.
I don't think this movie does anything bad at all. I
Mm,
also don't think this movie does anything overly great outside of the actual writing itself.
yeah.
Um, which is why it's not just an 8, it's an 8.5. Um, I mean, this is the definition of an 8.5. If you ask me one film that is an 8.5 out of 10, I will always pick Iron Man. Um, I've and it's the highest origin story movie of the MCU for me among all Marvel movies itself. I only have Spider-Man from Tobey Maguire ahead of this. Um, and as you can see, I have that at a 9.5 out of 10, mainly because I'm more connected personally to Peter Parker than I am to Tony Stark. We did have this conversation before that um, Tony Tony grew up rich and then fell to earth. Like his character arc is what makes him a great character,
Hmm.
because he goes through the struggle.
Hmm.
But what I like more about Peter Parker and why Spider-Man's my favorite character is Peter's always had the struggle since he
Yeah.
grew up. I mean,
Yeah.
he in and there's different iterations where he just like grew up with his aunt and uncle, and his parents left, or his parents died, or like he didn't have his parents. Then he loses Uncle Ben, and then Mary Jane. He loses Gwen Stacy. Like he loses so much in life, but he still finds the willpower to keep moving forward and to help people. That's what I find more relatable with Peter Parker,
Yeah.
or I just relate more personally to Peter Parker, and that's why I have it so much higher. I think I see so much more, and I mean, I saw Spider-Man in theaters for the first time, um, because like I was only 2 years old when the first Spider-Man movie came out, but I saw Spider-Man 2 and 3 in the theaters when they first came out. Um, but to see it in theaters, I was like, yeah, this movie just still does it for me. It's it's an almost perfect movie for me. I just don't think it ages well, which is not why it's not a 10 out of 10. Um, but I think Iron Man does so many great things, but it's just why I don't connect much with Tony Stark. I think there's a lot of it is like you start to not you really don't care for his character when the movie starts. You're
Yeah.
like, all right, yeah, he's a billionaire playboy philanthropist. Like all of those words, nobody really cares. Like nobody cares about the character when you say that. If you say a poor kid with no parents and lost his uncle in Brooklyn, like you're like, oh, like
Struggle.
I want to hear more about this kid.
Yeah.
That's the difference between Tony Stark and Peter Parker at the end
I
of the
got you.
day.
I got you. That makes sense. All right. Well, hey, this has been Iron Man 1. We are going to take a pause for the cause right now, and then we'll come back and get into Iron Man 2.